Hey mamas, papas, and everyone in the crew, welcome back to today's video. I'm going to be going over 5 tips on how to handle toddler behavior. If you're a new toddler mom or parent, it's going to be a transition from when you have an infant child to a toddler child. But today I'm going to be going over 5 tips to make sure that you can make the transition without chaos. So let's get right into it. The first thing that you want to do is stay calm. Toddlers will try you. They will try your patience. They will try your life. But you have to stay calm when dealing with toddlers because they are brand new to earth and they are testing limits. So every time they do something, you don't want to overreact or act like a psychopath because they do something. You want to remain calm and remember that they're doing this because they don't know. And I know it can be easily frustrating when you've asked them not to do something or they're doing something out of curiosity, and so it can make you angry or mad because they could be throwing the flour all over the floor, they could be drawing all over the wall, but you have to remember to stay calm. You do not want to react to them out of frustration because then that generates fear for them, and you never want your child to be afraid of you. So always stay calm before making any corrective action with your toddler. And I know it's tough, but you have to start by staying calm. The next thing that you want to do is give your child a break. Give them grace. We as parents and adults, we forget that children are brand new and they don't know. So toddlers, for anyone who might not be familiar with it, toddlers usually start around 15, 16 months. They're considered young toddlers, and of course they go all the way up past 2 into the 3-year-old category of being a toddler. So you have a long period of time of having to adjust and give your child grace. And I think a lot of times because you start out with them doing an action, you try to correct the behavior because you're frustrated, and then you lead with the discipline through anger, you forget to give them a break and give them grace. Remember, a lot of times, especially if you have a toddler now, they were born during a time where we were born during they were born during a pomegranate pizza. So a lot of what we knew prior to them being born has changed. So you just have to give them grace and understand that the world that they were born into was not the world you were born into, and that just because they do something, it's not always a corrective action that's needed. Sometimes it's just giving them grace, saying uh-oh, or we don't do that, or put that here, or just giving them grace so that they know that not everything they do is bad, and that it will allow them to also give them a chance to think about consequences and also correcting their own behavior. Another thing that goes along with giving them grace is that they are starting to think very independently, and you don't always have to correct their behavior. Sometimes giving them a warning, allowing them to think through the action will also get you the response that's needed. So just give your little toddler grace, and I promise you'll see a difference by staying calm and giving grace. The next thing is to be consistent. At this age, consistency is key. It's not only about building routine, but it's also about letting them know that if they're doing something incorrectly, you're correcting the behavior every time they do something. Consistency is going to be key. And I know that's hard because, again, sometimes they'll do something and you are frustrated or angry at what they did. And so when you correct them, sometimes you can be angry or frustrated in your correction. But if you're consistent with, we don't put that here, or if you're consistent with put that down, or that's not nice, or you don't hit, you don't bite, if you're consistent with that, it will help the toddler to understand, like, okay, we can't do that, because every time I do that, I get corrected. Another thing with being consistent is bedtime, reading, brushing their teeth, brushing their hair. My son doesn't really like when I brush his hair, but he knows that when we're getting ready to leave or when it's bedtime, he will brush his teeth and I'm doing his hair. And because I'm doing that consistently, when we're like in the bed or doing something random, he'll pick up a comb and he's doing that set action. And if your child is mimicking an action that you're doing, you're building good consistency with them, and that's how you know to continue to do that behavior. Now, my son is 24 months old, so he's right at the beginning of what they consider a real toddler. He was a young toddler, so prior to this, between 15 and 23 months is young toddler, and then from 2 to 3 is like your regular toddler. So he's now in the regular toddler category. So it's even more crucial now to stay consistent with disciplining, building routines, family traditions, all that. Now they are going to remember. Be consistent, but stay calm and give them grace. The next thing you want to do is become the queen of distractions. Not everything you even need to give a response to. You see they're acting up in the grocery store, give them the iPad. You see that they're jumping all over the place, redirect them to do something else. Not everything requires discipline. Sometimes remember, they're new, so they don't really know what to do. They're in a new environment. They're just jumping around all over the place. So sometimes distracting them can also get you the result that you're looking for. And trust me, I get it. Sometimes you're in public settings, they're acting up, you dragging them across the grocery store because you told them no. The art of distraction will really help get you to where you have to be. I only have one, and I've had to master this, but I also have a dog. And so I've had to master doing both, because even though I have a dog and a toddler, it's like having two children. So you have to distract both of them at the same time. But if you have multiple children, trust me, then you understand distraction.com. Distraction. You want them to sit in the chair, give them the iPad, give them some chips, sing the Cocomelon song. Sometimes you just have to find a way to distract them so that you can get what you have to get and keep it pushing. Distraction. Sometimes behavior is not always needed for discipline. Sometimes you just have to distract them long enough for you to get where you have to get and keep it pushing. The next thing that you definitely want to do is avoid stressful situations. And you're like, what does that mean? Avoiding stressful situations means that you do not do something that you know you are incapable of controlling the majority of the outcome when it's just you and your toddler. For example, for me in the mornings, because my husband's at work and I work remotely, I have to walk the dog, and a lot of times that's in the morning when Noah is up. So I have to take Noah with us. And for a while I was doing that, but it was becoming frustrating because I'm trying to walk Cooper, but then also I have to deal with our toddler Noah, who's picking up the grass, running across the street. It became a lot. So what I had to do so that I wouldn't be stressed out is separate the toddler from walking, or have my husband walk the dog and then I would deal with Noah. But knowing stressful situations and avoiding them so that you're not freaking out, you and your toddler are not getting into this power struggle, which happens in this age bracket with them, this unnecessary power struggle. You don't even need to do that. If you know it's a situation that you cannot control, do not put yourself in it. It's not your toddler's fault that you have to walk the dog and that they are up and you have to watch them. Okay, it is not their fault. So you need to come up with a solution so that you are not putting yourself in a situation where you are stressing out, yelling and fussing at them, and creating a stressful situation that is not needed. Okay, you don't have to do it. If it's unavoidable, meaning like you have to take your dog or your child to a space where it's stressful, then here is another tip. If you cannot avoid the situation, and that's the art of giving in. Sometimes you have to know when it's peace over purpose. And I think sometimes parents, when you're transitioning from being an infant parent where you have all this control over your child to when you are a toddler parent where you don't have as much control over the child, it can be daunting, and that's where the power struggle comes in. But you have to know when to hold and when to fold. Prime example, if you are at an airport with your child or your toddler and they want to use the iPad, okay, and you're like, no, because we're about to board the plane. You have to, in that situation, decide if the purpose of you withholding the iPad is more important than the peace you're going to get from giving your child the iPad. My husband and my family and I, we went to Jamaica early last year in 2021, and you would be surprised how many parents picked purpose, like, no, you can't have the iPad, versus just letting the child have the iPad for the 10-15 minutes until they got on the plane and fell asleep anyway. I mean, the screaming, the back and forth, it is not necessary. And in that situation, it's best to give in versus looking crazy at a public airport or holding up the security line because you want your child to do something, but they don't want to do it. They want to do something else. You know, there are certain situations where you have to think peace over purpose. So that's just something to keep in mind about giving in. It's not always about, oh, they think that they got over. It's more about, I cannot discipline and be consistent in the message that I'm trying to send to them without causing chaos and confusion. So I'm just going to allow this to happen so that we can continue on with our trip, continue on with our day. You have to pick peace over purpose sometimes. And I know you might watch this and be like, girl, you tripping, but trust me, there are going to be some situations where you're going to have to think to yourself, is it really worth him or her having a temper tantrum for 20, 30, 40 minutes versus giving them the iPad, giving them the candy, letting them touch whatever they want to touch, and then just using hand sanitizer afterwards for 5 minutes so that you can get what you have to get done and keep it pushing, versus having to over-escalate the situation, over-discipline them because you wanted to pick purpose over peace. Conceding can sometimes be the conclusion. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't by now, please subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you a part of the crew. I'm April, a mommy blogger for accordingtoapril.com for all things toddler, mom style, and motherhood in general. You definitely want to make sure you check out my blog. Until the next video, take care. Bye.